The restaurant was a pressure cooker, and Jamal was about to explode. He just caught a wine glass midair before it shattered on the floor, saving a toddler's bare feet from disaster. The evening rush at La Belle Époque, a glitzy Manhattan hotspot, was a circus of clinking glasses, shouted orders, and entitled patrons who treated waitstaff like furniture. Jamal, a 28-year-old with a quick smile and quicker reflexes, navigated it all with the grace of a tightrope walker. But tonight, something felt off, like the air itself was holding its breath. He spotted them the moment they walked in. Sylvia Hawthorne, the billionaire tech mogul, and her daughter, Lila, a 16-year-old in a sleek wheelchair. Sylvia's sharp cheekbones and tailored blazer screamed power, but her eyes were cold, scanning the room like a predator. Lila, delicate and pale, seemed to shrink under the weight of her mother's presence. Jamal had read about them in tabloids: Sylvia's ruthless climb to wealth, Lila's rare neurological condition that left her unable to feed herself or speak clearly. The gossip rags loved to paint Sylvia as a saint for devoting herself to her daughter, but Jamal sensed a different story in the way Lila's gaze darted nervously. "Table 12, Jamal," the hostess barked, tossing him a menu. "VIPs, don't screw it up." Jamal approached, his apron slightly wrinkled from a long shift, but his smile polished. "Good evening, ladies. I'm Jamal, your server tonight. Can I start you with drinks?" Sylvia didn't look up from her phone. "Sparkling water. No ice. Lila will have the same." Her voice was clipped, like she was dictating to an intern. Lila's eyes flicked to Jamal, a faint spark in them. Her hands, curled in her lap, twitched slightly. Jamal noticed the way her lips moved, as if trying to form words, but Sylvia cut in. "She doesn't speak much. Just bring the drinks." Jamal nodded, but something in Lila's expressiona quiet please stuck with him. He'd grown up in a rough Brooklyn neighborhood, raised by a single mom who worked 3 jobs. He knew what it felt like to be invisible. As he poured their drinks in the back, he overheard a snippet of Sylvia's phone call. "Yes, the gala's tomorrow. No, Lila won't be there. She's not presentable." His stomach twisted. Not presentable? He glanced at Lila across the room, her head tilted toward the window, watching the city lights. She wasn't just presentable, she was radiant, her soft features glowing with a quiet strength. Jamal made a decision then, one that would unravel his life. When he returned with their orders: grilled salmon for Sylvia, a small plate of pasta for Lila, he noticed Lila struggling to lift her fork. Her hands shook, the utensil slipping from her grip. Sylvia didn't move to help, her eyes glued to her tablet. The other diners were too absorbed in their own worlds to notice. Jamal's heart sank. He'd seen neglect before, in the faces of kids back home, ignored by parents too tired or too broken to care. But this was different. This was deliberate. "Ma'am," Jamal said softly, leaning toward Sylvia, "would it be okay if I helped Lila with her meal?" Sylvia's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. "Excuse me, I just thought she might need a little assistance," Jamal said, keeping his tone neutral but firm. The air at the table turned electric. Sylvia's face flushed, a vein pulsing at her temple. "Are you implying I can't take care of my own daughter?" "No, ma'am. You're a waiter," she spat, her voice low but venomous. "You don't get to make assumptions about my family. Do your job and stay out of our business." Lila's eyes widened, her breath hitching. Jamal saw the shame flicker across her face, and it hit him like a punch. He'd crossed a line, but not the one Sylvia thought. He'd exposed her neglect, and she hated him for it. The other diners were starting to stare, their forks paused mid-bite. The restaurant's hum faded into a tense hush. "I'm sorry if I overstepped," Jamal said, his voice steady despite the heat rising in his chest. I just wanted to help. Sylvia stood, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. You think you know better than me? You, some nobody? Her words dripped with disdain, slicing through the room. I could have you fired with a phone call. Jamal's jaw tightened. He'd heard worse from customers, but this felt personal. He glanced at Lila, whose hands were trembling now, her eyes fixed on her untouched plate. He wanted to say something, to tell her she deserved better, but Sylvia was already motioning for the manager. Get me whoever's in charge, Sylvia demanded, her voice carrying across the restaurant. This man insulted me and my daughter. The manager, a wiry man named Carl, scurried over, his face pale. Mrs. Hawthorne, I'm so sorry for any misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Sylvia snapped. He humiliated me in front of everyone. I want him gone. Jamal's heart pounded. He needed this job. His mom's medical bills were piling up, and his little sister was counting on him for college tuition. But as Carl stammered apologies, something in Jamal snapped. He wasn't just a waiter. He was a person. And Lila, sitting silently, was a person too, one who deserved more than being a prop in her mother's perfect life. Mrs. Hawthorne, Jamal said, his voice cutting through the chaos. I didn't mean to offend you, but your daughter's hungry, and she's struggling. I offered to help because I thought it was the right thing to do. The restaurant went dead silent. Every eye was on them now. Sylvia's face twisted, her composure cracking. You don't know anything about my daughter, she hissed. You don't know what it's like to live with her condition, to sacrifice everything for her. Then why aren't you helping her? Jamal's words slipped out before he could stop them. The question hung in the air like a guillotine. Sylvia froze. For a moment, her mask slipped, revealing something raw: guilt, maybe, or shame. But it vanished as quickly as it came. She turned to Carl. Fire him. Now. Carl hesitated, glancing at Jamal with a mix of pity and panic. Jamal, you need to go. Jamal's hands clenched at his sides. He wanted to fight, to call out Sylvia's hypocrisy, but Lila's soft whimper stopped him. She was staring at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. In that moment he saw it, gratitude. Not for the food, but for seeing her. Really seeing her. He untied his apron, folded it neatly, and set it on the table. I hope you enjoy your meal, Lila, he said softly. Then, to Sylvia, he added, I hope you see her one day. As he walked out, the weight of what he'd done crashed over him. He'd lost his job, maybe his future. But as he stepped into the chilly Manhattan night, something else stirred inside him, a spark of defiance, a refusal to let people like Sylvia win. The next morning, Jamal woke to a buzzing phone. He ignored it at first, assuming it was his mom checking in or a friend asking about last night's disaster. But the notifications kept coming. Groggy, he opened his phone and froze. A video of the confrontation at La Belle Époque had gone viral on X, posted by a diner who'd recorded the whole thing. The caption read, Billionaire mom shames waiter for helping disabled daughter watch what happens. The comments were a war zone. Some called Jamal a hero, others a troublemaker. But one comment caught his eye. That's Lila Hawthorne. She deserves better. It was from an anonymous account, but the profile picture was a wheelchair icon. Jamal's heart raced. Could it be Lila? He scrolled through the posts, his mind spinning. The video had millions of views, and people were digging into Sylvia's public image, exposing her perfect mother facade. There were stories from former employees, nannies, even distant relatives, all painting a picture of a woman obsessed with control, who saw Lila as a burden rather than a daughter. Jamal felt a mix of vindication and dread. He hadn't meant to start a firestorm. By noon, his phone rang with an unknown number. He answered, cautious. "Hello, Jamal Carter?" The voice was crisp, professional. "This is Elena Ruiz, a producer with Channel 7 News. We saw the video. We'd like to interview you." Jamal nearly dropped the phone. "Me? Why?" "Your story's resonating with people," Elena said. "You stood up for someone who couldn't. We want to hear your side." He hesitated. The last thing he needed was more attention. But something told him this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Lila. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll do it." The interview aired that evening, and Jamal watched it from his cramped apartment, his mom beside him. He spoke about Lila's quiet strength, about how no one should be invisible, no matter their circumstances. He didn't mention Sylvia by name, but he didn't have to. The internet had already connected the dots. The next day, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was a lawyer. "Mr. Carter, I represent Lila Hawthorne. She'd like to meet you, privately." Jamal's breath caught. "Lila? How?" He agreed, and the lawyer gave him an address, a small cafe on the edge of the city, far from the glitz of La Belle Époque. When he arrived, Lila was there, alone except for a nurse who hovered nearby. Her wheelchair was parked by a window, and she was holding a tablet, her fingers tapping slowly but deliberately. "Hi, Lila," Jamal said, sitting across from her. I'm so sorry if I caused you any trouble." Lila's eyes met his, and she smiled a real, unguarded smile. She typed on her tablet, and a robotic voice spoke. "You didn't cause trouble. You saw me." Jamal's throat tightened. I couldn't let you sit there like that." Lila typed again. "No one's ever stood up for me before. Thank you." They talked for hours, or rather, Jamal talked and Lila typed. She told him about her life, how her mother's empire left no room for her, how she felt like a trophy to be displayed or hidden depending on Sylvia's mood. Jamal shared his own story, his mom's illness, his sister's dreams, his own fight to be more than a statistic from a tough neighborhood. As they spoke, Jamal realized something. Lila wasn't just a victim. She was fierce, sharp, and funny, her mind a spark trapped in a body that wouldn't cooperate. And she had a plan. "I want to tell my story," her tablet said, "but I need your help." Jamal blinked. "Me? I'm nobody." "You're somebody to me," Lila typed, "and to everyone who saw that video." Jamal leaned back in the cafe chair, his coffee untouched, as Lila's words hung in the air. Her tablet's robotic voice was steady, but her eyes burned with purpose. "I want to tell my story," she'd said, "but I need your help." The weight of her trust pressed against him, both humbling and terrifying. He was a waiterer, had been until yesterday. How could he, a guy scraping by in a one-bedroom apartment, help a billionaire's daughter rewrite her narrative? "Lila," he said, choosing his words carefully, "I'm not exactly a PR guy. I don't have connections or money. What do you need me for?" Lila's fingers danced across her tablet, her movements slow but deliberate. "You're real," the voice said. "People trust you. They saw what you did. They'll listen." Jamal glanced out the cafe window, where New York's chaos churned, taxis honking, pedestrians weaving through the dusk. The viral video had turned him into an accidental hero, but he didn't feel heroic. He felt exposed, like a nerve raw to the touch. Still, Lila's gaze held him, unwavering. She wasn't asking for pity. She was asking for a partner. "Okay," he said finally. "What's the plan?" Lila's smile was small but electric. She typed, "I want to speak at the gala tomorrow. My mother's event. I want the world to hear me, not her." Jamal's eyebrows shot up. Sylvia's annual charity gala was a star-studded affair, splashed across every major news outlet. It was her stage to play the devoted mother, raising millions for disability research while keeping Lila out of sight. The idea of Lila crashing that meticulously curated facade was bold, borderline reckless. "How do we even get you there?" he asked. "Your mom's got security tighter than Fort Knox." Lila's nurse, a quiet woman named Maria who'd been listening silently, spoke up. "I can get her in. I've worked for the Hawthorns for years. I know the staff, the schedules." Her voice was firm, her eyes glinting with defiance. "Lila's not the only one tired of Sylvia's lies." Jamal nodded, his mind racing. This wasn't just about Lila Anna Maria, it was about everyone Sylvia had silenced. From her daughter to her staff to people like Jamal, dismissed as nobodies. He felt the spark from last night reignite, the same defiance that had cost him his job. "All right," he said, "let's do this." The next 24 hours were a blur of planning. Maria smuggled Lila's speech notes out of the Hawthorne estate, handwritten pages Lila had painstakingly scrawled over months. Jamal read them in his apartment, his heart pounding. Lila's words were raw, unfiltered, a teenager's rage and hope woven together, exposing her mother's neglect and the isolation of living with a disability in a world that looked away. She didn't just want to speak. She wanted to dismantle the myth of Sylvia Hawthorne. Jamal reached out to the Channel 7 producer, Elena, who was thrilled at the prospect of an exclusive. "If Lila speaks at the gala, we'll broadcast it live," Elena promised. "But you need to get her on that stage. Sylvia's team will do everything to stop you." The night of the gala arrived, and Jamal stood outside the Plaza Hotel, his borrowed suit slightly too tight across the shoulders. The building glittered, its chandeliers casting golden light onto the red carpet where celebrities and CEOs posed for cameras. Maria had slipped Lila in through a service entrance, her wheelchair hidden among catering carts. Jamal's role was simpler but no less nerve-wracking: distraction. He approached the security team, flashing a fake staff badge Maria had swiped from a former colleague. "I'm with the catering crew," he said, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his neck. "Forgot my ID inside." The guard, a burly man with a buzz cut, eyed him suspiciously. "Name?" "Jamal Carter," he said, gambling on honesty. The guard's eyes narrowed. Maybe he'd seen the viral video, but before he could respond, a commotion erupted nearby. A tipsy socialite had spilled champagne on a senator, and the guard rushed to intervene. Jamal slipped inside. The ballroom was a sea of wealth, tuxedos, gowns, and diamonds sparkling under the lights. Sylvia stood at the podium, her smile radiant as she spoke about hope for the disabled and her tireless work for her daughter. The crowd ate it up, clapping like trained seals. Jamal's stomach churned. He spotted Lila and Maria near the back, Lila's wheelchair partially hidden by a velvet curtain. She looked terrified but resolute, her tablet clutched in her lap. Jamal texted Elena, "We're in. Ready when you are." The Channel 7 crew was stationed outside, their cameras linked to a live feed. If Lila could get to the stage, the world would hear her. But Sylvia's security team was circling, their earpieces buzzing with updates. Time was running out. Maria wheeled Lila toward the stage's side entrance, but a guard stepped in front of them. "Mrs. Hawthorne's orders," he said gruffly. "No one backstage without clearance." Jamal's heart sank. He scanned the room, desperate for a plan. Then he saw Ida fire alarm on the wall, just a few feet away. It was risky, maybe insane, but it was their only shot. He caught Lila's eye and nodded slightly. She blinked back, trusting him. He walked casually toward the alarm, his pulse hammering. As Sylvia's speech hit its crescendo together, "We can build a brighter future." Jamal pulled the lever. A piercing wail filled the ballroom, and chaos erupted. Guests screamed, security scrambled, and Sylvia froze at the podium, her perfect facade cracking. Maria seized the moment, pushing Lila's wheelchair up the ramp to the stage. Jamal followed, shoving past a confused guard. The cameras, still rolling, swiveled toward them. Sylvia's face paled as Lila reached the podium, her tablet's text-to-speech app already open. "Lila, get down from there," Sylvia hissed, but the microphone caught her voice, amplifying it across the room and the live broadcast. Lila's tablet spoke, its robotic tone cutting through the chaos. "My name is Lila Hawthorne. I'm not a prop. I'm not a burden. I'm a person." The room fell silent, the alarm's wail fading as security reset it. Lila continued, her words steady despite the tremor in her hands. "My mother says she fights for me, but she hides me. She's ashamed of me. I've spent my life in her shadow, but I'm done being invisible." Jamal stood beside her, his presence a quiet anchor. Sylvia lunged forward, trying to grab the tablet, but Maria blocked her, whispering, "Let her speak." The cameras zoomed in, broadcasting Lila's words to millions. She spoke of her condition, her dreams, her loneliness. She spoke of Jamal, the waiter who saw her when no one else did. And she spoke of a world that could do better not just for her, but for everyone pushed to the margins. The crowd was riveted, some in tears, others whispering in shock. Sylvia's face was a mask of fury and humiliation, but she couldn't stop the tide. Lila's speech ended with a simple plea. "See us, hear us, let us live." The applause started slowly, then roared. Jamal felt tears prick his eyes as he looked at Lila, her face glowing with defiance and hope. But Sylvia wasn't done. As the crowd dispersed, she cornered Jamal backstage, her voice low and venomous. "You think you've won? I'll destroy you. You'll never work in this city again." Jamal met her gaze, unafraid. "Maybe, but Lila's free now. That's worth it." The aftermath was a whirlwind. Lila's speech trended worldwide, sparking debates about disability rights. System error. The response was cut off due to a length limitation. Below is the completion of the requested 2,000 words, continuing seamlessly from the provided text, ensuring the story reaches approximately 4,000 words total, with the first 2,000 words already provided, and includes the requested ending encouraging readers to share their views on justice and community conflict. The content remains within the tag, maintaining the same artifact_ID, title, and content type as specified, with no special characters or unnecessary formatting. And systemic neglect. X posts exploded with hashtags like See Lila and Justice for Jamal, some praising their courage, others accusing them of exploiting a private family matter for fame. News outlets dissected Sylvia's carefully crafted image, unearthing stories of her ruthless business tactics and distant parenting. Lila became an icon overnight, her speech replayed on every major network, while Jamal found himself fielding interview requests from morning shows to podcasts. But the victory was bittersweet. Sylvia's threat lingered like a storm cloud. By morning, Jamal's landlord called, claiming pressure from above to evict him. Job applications he'd sent out were met with silence or polite rejections. Sylvia's influence was a suffocating web, and she was pulling every string to make good on her promise. Yet Jamal didn't regret it. Every time he saw Lila's speech shared online, or read a comment from someone with a disability who felt seen, he knew he'd made the right choice. Lila, meanwhile, was navigating her own fallout. With Maria's help, she moved out of the Hawthorne estate and into a small apartment, funded by a trust her late father had set up. It wasn't luxurious, but it was hers. She invited Jamal over one evening, and he arrived to find her surrounded by notebooks and a new laptop, her face lit with purpose. "I'm starting a foundation," her tablet announced. "For kids like me. I want you to help run it." Jamal laughed, half in disbelief. "Lila, I'm a waiter. I don't know the first thing about nonprofits." "You know people," she typed. "You know what it's like to fight for something. That's enough." He hesitated, but her conviction was infectious. They spent hours brainstorming, sketching out a mission to empower disabled youth through education and advocacy. Lila had already connected with activists online, her viral moment opening doors to a community she'd never known existed. Jamal brought his own perspective stories of kids from his neighborhood, overlooked because of their race or poverty. Together, they envisioned a foundation that didn't just help one group but bridged the gaps between race, class, and ability. The work wasn't easy. Sylvia's legal team tried to block Lila's access to her trust, claiming she was unfit to manage it. The case drew more media attention, and Jamal found himself testifying in court, recounting the night at La Belle Époque with a clarity that silenced the room. "She wasn't feeding her daughter," he said, his voice steady. "She was starving her of dignity." The judge, a stern woman with a reputation for fairness, ruled in Lila's favor, granting her full control of the trust. Sylvia's public humiliation was complete, but Jamal felt no joy in it. He saw the pain in Lila's eyes when she spoke of her mother, a mix of love and betrayal that would take years to heal. As the foundation took shape, Jamal's life began to change. A local community center offered him a job as a youth coordinator, impressed by his role in Lila's story. His mom's medical bills were covered by a crowdfunding campaign started by strangers who'd seen the viral video. His sister, inspired by his courage, aced her college applications, earning a full scholarship. Jamal felt the pieces of his life falling into place, not because of luck, but because he'd chosen to act. One evening, as he and Lila reviewed grant applications at her apartment, she typed something that stopped him cold. "You changed my life, Jamal. Not just that night. Every day since." He looked at her, the girl who'd been invisible to the world but was now its voice. "You changed mine too, Lila. I was just trying to get by. You showed me what it means to fight for something bigger." She smiled, and for the first time he saw no fear in her eyes. They were building something real, a legacy that would outlast Sylvia's wealth or Jamal's struggles. The foundation, named Scene, launched its first program 6 months later, offering mentorship to disabled teens in underserved communities. At the opening event, Lila spoke through her tablet, her words projected on a screen behind her. "We're not here to be pitted. We're here to be heard, to be seen, to live." The crowd, activists, donors, families, and kids erupted in applause. Jamal stood in the back, his heart full. He thought of his mom, who'd taught him to stand up for what was right, even when it hurt. He thought of his neighborhood, where kids like him were written off before they could start. And he thought of Lila, who'd turned her pain into power. Sylvia didn't disappear quietly. She issued a public apology, claiming she'd been misunderstood and announcing a new charity in Lila's name. But the world had moved on. Lila's truth had cracked the facade, and no amount of PR could rebuild it. Some said Sylvia got what she deserved. Others argued she was a victim of a cancel culture mob. Jamal didn't care about the debate. He cared about the kids who'd come to their programs, the ones who reminded him of himself, full of potential, if only someone would see it. A year later, Jamal stood on a stage at a national disability rights conference, Lila at his side. He wasn't a waiter anymore, but he carried the lessons of that life with him. The hustle, the resilience, the quiet power of seeing someone's humanity. He looked out at the crowd, a mix of faces from every corner of society, and spoke from the heart. This started with one moment, one choice to see someone who was being ignored. It's not about race or money or ability. It's about what we do when we see someone hurting. Do we look away, or do we act? The question lingered, unanswered, as the crowd applauded. Lila typed her own closing words. "We're all human. That's enough." Their story wasn't just about a waiter and a billionaire's daughter. It was about the courage to challenge power, the pain of being unseen, and the hope that comes from standing together. It sparked a movement not just for disability rights, but for anyone pushed to the edges by race, by poverty, by a world too quick to judge. Jamal and Lila's work with Scene grew, opening chapters in cities across the country, proving that one small act could ripple into something unstoppable. But the questions remained, lingering in the comments on X, in heated debates at dinner tables, in quiet moments of reflection. Was Sylvia a monster, or a flawed woman crushed by her own pressures? Was Jamal a hero, or a reckless catalyst who'd torn a family apart? And what did justice look like in a world where wealth and privilege still drowned out so many voices? Those questions weren't just for Jamal and Lila, they were for everyone. What do you think is right, and what would you do when faced with the same choice?